Today I will be analyzing 3 stories brought to you by GreatBigStory.com. The first story I will be looking at is the rebellious origin of the video game Easter egg. This is the story of how an Atari video game maker named Warren Robinett defied the company and created the first Easter egg. An Easter egg in a video game is an intentional inside joke, hidden message, or added feature. At the time, Atari did not give any credit or royalties to its programmers and game makers. So Warren Robinett, the creator of the first action-adventure video game called Adventure, decided to add what would become later known as an Easter egg. Warren added a feature to the game where the player could find a secret room which was filled with letters spelling out "created by Warren Robinett." Before Atari could even realize, they shipped out 200,000 copies of the game, and Warren had left the company. Little did he know at the time, but Warren Robinett had just created what is a staple in modern video games, known as an Easter egg. To illustrate this idea, here is another example of an Easter egg from The Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of
You're where you
Time.
meet Zelda. If you look to the right, through the window, you can see posters of multiple characters from the Mushroom Kingdom. These include Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, and Bowser. If you screenshot at the window too, you'll receive a red rupee. Now, on the left-hand side in the same area, if you use your screenshot at this window, a guard will pop out telling you to stop, then he'll throw a bomb at you.
Flashing movie marquee that said created by
I thought this was a well done and interesting video both from its substance and visuals. During the video, 2 narrators, one being Warren Robinett himself, describe the story, but in the way in which they link visuals with the story is interesting. There is a television screen that tells the story through visuals, using the Atari graphics of the time that contrast sharply with the crisp colors of high-definition visuals surrounding it on a dated television screen. There's an Atari placed next to the television that a person changes games in and out. These games have the topic that is being talked about written on them and are inserted when that topic arises within the story. The second story I watched was called A Video Game with Dysentery: Relive the Oregon Trail. Now, anyone who grew up in the 1990s to early 2000s household or school with a PC or Mac knows that the Oregon Trail is simply awesome. You can talk to any child who grew up in that era, and you will be hard-pressed to find anyone who did not play and love that game. The computer game is a quest to travel across the legendary Oregon Trail as a pioneer traveling west in a pursuit of a better life. The game is meant to embody the hardships and difficulties the pioneers had in their travels as you experience broken wagon wheels, decisions on how to cross rivers, snake bites, and deadly diseases. The Oregon Trail actually began, however, as a board game. Don was a student teacher who used unique ways to educate his students, often dressing up as historical figures to teach his history lessons. So one day in 1971, Don was thinking of an interesting way to teach his students about the Oregon Trail when he thought of creating a board game that included flashcards with the hardships of the pioneers traveling west. His other roommates thought it was a good idea, and they suggested that they develop a computer game that could be used as an educational tool. As soon as the newly made computer game was brought into his classroom, the students could not get enough. The students began staying late and coming in early just to play the game. So as Apple II launched in the late 70s, the Oregon Trail became a staple around Minnesota and eventually the country. The video is done in similar ways to the first video. The video opens up on an Apple II, the first system that carried the Oregon Trail computer game, showing play from the original game. The video shows sharp visual contrast from the modern high-definition cameras that are used around the screen against the very low definition of the game. After it leaves the computer, it shows a dramatization of events that include the 3 developers of the game and then cuts to students playing a computer game in class on an older computer. It eventually cuts back to gameplay, ending the short dissertation on the history of the Oregon Trail. The third and final story that I watched is called The Dark Origins of the Game Called Life. Most Americans are familiar with the game of life, a board game where you make life-size decisions on a game-sized board in order to be the most successful player. The game is made by Milton Bradley, the board game empire, first started by, you guessed it, Milton Bradley himself. The story begins with Milton Bradley in 1860. At the time, he was in the lithograph business which was an early printing process. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln received the Republican nomination for president, and Milton Bradley printed off thousands of pictures portraying the candidate. The only problem was, Abraham had not yet decided to grow out his famous beard. Shortly after printing, the beard was grown, which rendered all of Milton's pictures unsellable and put him out of business. While drowning his sorrows, Milton began, potentially out of sarcastic pessimism, what he called the game of life. However, this game is not very similar to the one that we know and love today. This game was full of dark twists and turns, including prison, ruin, and even suicide. The game was a hit around the country, and today you can see the revamped and a bit more cheery version at any store that carries board games. The key to the story is visuals. The contrast in color and vibrancy is what is key to setting the mood and tone of the story. The story opens on a spectacularly bright and colorful board of the game of life and how it is played. It is then sharply cuts to dark black and white images and videos of the lithograph process in the 1860 Republican Convention, which resets your eyes for a moment. The key to the visual is epitomized when a version of the original board game consisting of light gray, red, and white colors is shown under darker lighting and then contrasts against the vibrant modern game. This is my analysis of the three stories. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.